Hello, hello, Luminary. It's the second to the last episode of 2023. And in solstice tradition, I want to reflect on the year that we have moved through to share some significance of the solstice in 2023, both astrologically and astronomically. I also want to share some of the gains and losses that I've had in my business in 2023. So listen in and find out how you too can reflect with this solstice. Welcome to Star Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii-born Filipino Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be. Hello, hello, Luminary. It's Leslie Tagorda. I can't believe we are already at the year end, at the second to the last episode of Star Powered Podcast in 2023. First of all, I would love to offer my gratitude because I was recently reminded that when you tune in and listen, whether you're cooking or you're walking or you're driving or you're going about your day, you are choosing to spend some of your non-renewable resources, your time and your energy with me. So thank you so much for allowing me to whisper in your ear and share all of my musings about astrology, work, leadership, and life. Thank you. It's just been such a joy to bring you this content this year. Well, as we approach our solstice in 2023, and our solstice also paired, intertwined, and woven in with this Mercury retrograde, the Mercury retrograde midway point, the day after the solstice, this indeed is a time of stillness and a time of reflection. And because maybe it's the astrology, maybe it's our culture, maybe it's just me. It's been really, really, really hard to take my own medicine and feeling just kind of like my head bumping against the wall and my exhaustion and just all of the things as I forge ahead, even though all of the energies are asking me to slow down. Well, Jeff and I and Jamira and our team, we are closing up office at the end of the solstice on Thursday evening, closing up for the rest of the year. So of course, I'm trying to earn my time off by getting 2 weeks of things done in the span of 3 days. Yay. I do not recommend this. I'm laughing at myself because, again, I'm just like not taking my own medicine. But what drives me to do this is because I want to get all of this reflection, these questions to you, and the cosmic weather of this beautiful solstice and this Mercury retrograde that takes us into the new year. Also, one of the things that I've been thinking about in my circle membership is people often tell me that they love how I reflect how to be a vulnerable leader. And to me, that vulnerability is part of like the transparency of leadership, all of the gains and all of the losses. So, in that theme, I'd also like, as part of my own reflection process, to share with you all of the wins and all of the losses in this really heavy lift of a year. Okay, so before we get into solstice reflections and how to use both the astrology and the astronomy of this upcoming solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, the shortest day of the year, and then sharing some of the questions that I ask myself when doing a year reflection and a year wrap up. I hope these questions can also inspire you to do your own reflections. Before we go into all of the reflections of this beautiful solstice time, I wanted to let you know that doors close tomorrow for Star Powered Circle. It has been, quite honestly, one of the hardest launches, most energetically draining launches that I've had to date. I thought I've learned my energy, but I have not. But I'm still so excited about Star Powered Circle. And so, even though the launch has been less than ideal, I absolutely love and believe in the power of Star Powered Circle, this community that comes together. You might have heard that I have both annual, you can join Star Powered Circle both annually for over 12 months, or you can join it for the first trimester with a commitment of 4 months. And I know that I'm probably speaking to you and you're like, I just can't stuff one more thing into my year. I get it. But if you choose to join Star Powered Circle before the doors close tomorrow, you get to join in for the first 4 months of Star Powered Circle, where we are going to be doing Year Ahead Vision Lab. That's going to be on January 18th, where together we are going to dive into our mastery, our breakthrough, and our expansion so that you can plan your year ahead according to your stars. You'll also get 4 new moon ceremonies where we get to all plant our seeds of intention together so that they can grow together so strongly and we can support each other. You'll also get 1 eclipse challenge that as we head into that eclipse season, we will be taking some big leaps to play big and conquering some of your fears so that you can take action, not because you don't have fear, but because you know how to manage your fear, because we need you as a leader. The one thing that I know for sure that is coming up in 2024 is that we are all being called to collective circular leadership. And that means that you have a role. Your gifts that are from your challenges and everything that you've overcome are what you are supposed to contribute into this collective circular leadership. And so all of that is ahead of us in 2024. I hope that you will join through. Now, if you want to hear my perspective on 2024, know that there's one last episode that's going to be dropping the day after Christmas, and I will be sharing the 5 cosmic events that I have my eye on for entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers in 2024. So make sure you get that last episode of the year. Now, going back to Circle, I forgot, if you'd like to join in before doors close for the rest of the year, then head on over to starpowered.com/circle. It is amazing in our little community. Okay, my friends, let's talk about this beautiful solstice. Now, I want to share the chart a little bit for this solstice because I feel this chart is very, very, very powerful. Now, the solstice, we get solstices twice a year, and the solstice meaning when the sun stands still. Whether or not we are in the northern or the southernmost hemisphere, the sun is at its extremes in its poles. Astronomically, the Earth is tilted at that 23 degrees axis. So the Earth is not spinning straight as a top up and down, but it's actually tilting to that 23 degrees. And in the summertime in the northern hemisphere, this northern hemisphere is summertime, that top of the northern hemisphere is pointing closer to the sun. And in December and when it's winter in the northern hemisphere, it's summer in the southern hemisphere because they are pointing closer to the sun. Now, you might have heard about the tropics of Capricorn and the tropics of Cancer. The tropics of Cancer is 23 degrees above the equator, north of the equator, right where Hawaii is really, really close to that 23 degree of Cancer mark. And that represents that northern horizon where the sun peaks in the summer for us in the northern hemisphere. So that summer solstice, or the solstice that happens in late June. Okay. And the Tropic of Capricorn is 23 degrees south of that equator. And so the solstice that we have in December, so for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, it's going to be winter. For those of us in the Southern Hemisphere, it's going to be summer. But the sun is at its southernmost point. So the Southern Hemisphere is experiencing their longest days with the most sunlight. And those of us in the Northern Hemisphere are experiencing the shortest days with the least amount of sunlight. But one thing you can know for sure is that the sun seems to stand still. In the northern hemisphere, where we're not getting any light, the sun seems to have disappeared. And in the southern hemisphere, the sun seems to be forever illuminating the sky in a never-ending daylight. But it's that standstill of the sun that is a perfect time, no matter which hemisphere that you are on, for a time of reflection as we welcome back the light, or we welcome back the dark, depending on where this beautiful earth you live. And so, of course, cultures across the world that have tracked the sun have noted these crucial times. If you notice, I have a plant behind me, it's actually a solstice plant. And you might have seen on the Instagrams that this is actually a Mexican and I believe an Aztec plant. And the red leaves represent the blood that would be sacrificed during the times of solstices. Now, we don't sacrifice blood sacrifices anymore, but there's many things that we are still sacrificing in our lives. And I'm going to be talking about that in our solstice reflections. Okay, I did a little bit of Googling on how to pronounce this most beautiful, brilliant flower, Kettle Solshi. The Aztecs called the poinsettia, which the poinsettia is the colonized name after the person who brought the poinsettia to the West, Kettle Solshi, brilliant flower. And the Mayans referred to it as the ember flower. And it's so beautiful that these indigenous peoples, the Aztecs and the Mayans, had a variety of medicinal, aesthetics, practical uses, as well as magical uses for this most beautiful of solstice flowers. So, in celebration of solstice, let's take a look at this solstice chart. If you're only listening to the audio of this podcast, do know that I am sharing the chart of the solstice on the video portion that I share on YouTube. And of course, I have this chart cast from San Francisco, where I currently live. But you can see that the solstice begins when the sun enters the cardinal sign of Capricorn. At the other 6 months, the sun will enter Cancer. And when it enters these cardinal Cancer Capricorn signs, this is when we have the solstice. The sun, now moving from its southernmost point, will now return and move up towards the equator. And when it gets to the equator, that will be Aries. Isn't it so beautiful to learn the astronomy of astrology? Actually, if you want to take an astronomy for astrologers class, the panelists that I had on for the 2024 Star Power 2024, Wade Caves, is now opening registration for astrology for astrologers. So I highly recommend that class. It is fascinating if you are a curious seeker. Anyway, back to this sun in Capricorn at that 0 degrees, you can see that at that same time, that sun is making a beautiful trine to the moon that is also at 0 degrees of Taurus. Now, this is very grounding. This is very embodied. And what I love about Taurus, one of my favorite words for Taurus is savor. Because to me, savoring is about appreciation and gratitude embodied, because we can taste, we can smell, we can feel with our bodies and take that time of spaciousness, of appreciation. And so at this solstice with that moon, this is reminding you to take time to savor, to appreciate, to take time to be in your body and feel the spaciousness, or to create the spaciousness. I think if you're an online business owner, and for most of us in the workforce, most offices do close down right after solstice. I am very, very glad. But again, if you're, don't make the same mistake as me as trying to fit in all the things before you take a break off, right? Like what is the point? I don't know, Leslie. I'm not even, I'm giving myself my own medicine and I'm obviously not taking it. Now, at the time of the solstice, also, we have right past an exact opposition between Venus and Uranus. So our feelings can be a little bit unexpected, especially in relationships. Maybe people say things or you say things that get received in an unexpected way, or we accidentally, accidents or surprises. So again, remember to be more intentional and to really, really, really slow down. But one of the things for these reflections of both this Venus Uranus opposition, a reflection question for the solstice could be, what has prevented you from changing? What have you had to oppose in your life in terms of like trusting your most trusted relationships? And so, in one way, we can look at what might be happening on that day, but we can also use this aspect to give us the reflection question around change and relationships. So, as you reflect back on 2023, what have you been able to change? What haven't you been able to change? What kind of relationships did you create? What kind of relationships did you need to let go that were unexpectedly unfulfilling? And then going back to that trine, we also have that embodiment part. How have you been able to savor or not savor? How can savoring and creating spaciousness and sustainability, all of that Taurian energy, give you the emotional security that you need to achieve your goals? That's that Capricorn sun. Now, the other big thing about this particular solstice, two things left. We have Pluto. Pluto is squaring off with the moon. And so gratefully, the moon is moving pretty quickly. So it's just at that moment of solstice on December 21st. This is about 7:28 p.m. Pacific. So this will be almost 10:30 Eastern time. That hopefully we'll be resting by then. So that Pluto intensity, we might just have this rush of emotions. I can imagine, I'm already feeling it, like just the release, like when you've been working so hard and you finally stop. For me, I'm a crier. So I imagine at this day, I'm just going to finally have that emotional release of just all the things that I've been holding on to this year that I'm just ready to let go of and surrender to with that Pluto squaring the moon. And then finally, that Mercury retrograde. The day after, on the 22nd, the Sun and Mercury will have their combust, their cazimi, the midway point of that Mercury retrograde. And when we have a midway point of a Mercury retrograde, sometimes we can get overloaded with so many thoughts and so many things and so many ideas. But the idea is, again, to slow down. It's to reflect. It's to be patient. It's to opt out of just trying to check off the boxes and make things happen. And so, a perfect time this solstice is to get your journal out and start doing some reflections. These reflections, the more time you spend on journaling and reflections of all of your gains and all of your losses, what you're ready to receive more of, and what you're ready to finally let go of, this is going to inform you by the time we get to our new moon in January, that new moon in Capricorn. This is going to prepare you for setting really intentional goals that are aligned with your energetics so that you can savor, so you can form like beautiful, trusting relationships so that you can be impactful and so that you can make the big leaps and changes where you're supposed to break free in the next year. All of this simply from the astrology of the solstice. Now, another way to do the reflections, of course, we can look at the solstice chart and ask and hear the questions that the solstice is asking us to reflect on. But also, we can look back at 2023 and ask, the big changes and the big shifts and the big questions of this year. We can ask how we rose to the occasion or how maybe we can do better next time. Because after all, we are on a life of experiences and experiments. There are no failures as long as you keep on getting up, restoring, and going again. So remember in 2023, some of the big astrological events that have happened was that Jupiter entered Taurus. Next year, it's going to be moving on to Gemini. But while Jupiter entered Taurus, it was asking us if we were able to really sustain our expansion and how we were growing. And some years we have big growth, sometimes some years we have slow growth. And depending where Taurus is in your chart, that Jupiter is asking you to reflect on how did you sustain your expansion. I know for me, I have a lot of, I accomplished too much in too little time. I did not do well in sustain your expansion. Lots of room for improvement. Now, earlier in 2023, Saturn left Aquarius and moved into Pisces. And at the turn of the year of last year, I gave this the theme of prioritizing your flow. Now, Saturn doesn't leave Pisces in 2024. It deepens into Pisces, into that kind of fixed second decan of Pisces. And so to me, Saturn has changed its theme in 2024, which I'll talk about in my next episode. But for right now, the question as Saturn first moves into Pisces is how have you prioritized your ease and flow? Now, again, as I reflect back on that question, have I prioritized my ease and flow? Oh my goodness, absolutely not. No wonder I am paying for it right now. And so, room for improvement. Okay, another thing in 2023 that happened was that Pluto entered Aquarius and then went back into Capricorn. But for the first few months of the year in 2023, Pluto in Aquarius kind of foreshadowed the next 20 years for us. In 2024, Pluto will dip its toes back into Capricorn again, but it's going to leave Capricorn for our intents and purposes forever, maybe until our great great grandchildren's lives. Okay. And so, or no, but I don't know how many generations are in 260 something years. Please help me figure that out. But Pluto in Aquarius, that foreshadowing that happened at the earlier part of 23, asked us, have we been able to regenerate our ability to change and be ourselves? Now, I think I've done that one pretty well, meaning I've empowered myself, I've committed to change, I've committed to showing up even when I haven't felt like it. I've committed to revolutionizing astrology in terms of like completing my entire framework, documenting it, video recording it, putting all those things together. So, have I done this Pluto in Aquarius? Check. That one I did pretty good on. Okay, the last reflection. North Node and the lunar nodes entering the Aries Libra axes. Now, to me, this was a theme of collective interdependence. Now, the North Node and the lunar nodes are still going to be in Aries and Libra in the next year in 2024, making all kinds of connections to Chiron and the eclipses. And oh my gosh, so much more still awakening and opening up into that collective interdependence. I'd like to think that this is another one that I have succeeded on. I've done pretty well on. I'm going to give myself a check there because I've been doing my best to bring people together in community and to still show up as my fully vulnerable, imperfect leadership role. So, another way for you to reflect is to look back at the transits of 2023 and see how you've embodied those themes. And now, if that's all too much for you, and you just kind of want to take a look at your work, at your business, at your achievement, because after all, it's now Capricorn season in solstice, the questions that we want to be asking are about what have you accomplished? Now, this is a loaded question because it doesn't stop there. It is great to go through everything you accomplished. And as I share my year in numbers and wrap up status at the end, I'm going to go through these questions with you because when you have accomplished something, there are other questions that you want to be asking yourself. So, looking at what you've accomplished in 2023 over the last 12 months, celebrate yourself. Like, really, honestly, celebrate yourself. Even if you just showed up and you made it and you're still breathing at the end of 2023, celebrate that. You've accomplished a lot. But now, when we go into the nitty gritty of like your goals and your work, here are 5 questions that I want you to ask yourself about your accomplishments so that you can reflect on your goals and what you want to accomplish on next year. So, the 5 questions to qualify what you have accomplished is to get curious with at what cost. Now, cost is not just money, it's time, it's energy, it's health, it's happiness. And so, a lot of us here are we're accomplishing things, whether you had your first $1 million year or whether you had your first $10,000 year, whatever it is, like what was the cost? What did you have to put in energetically, capacity, health? And what was the effort? Did you have to work too hard? Now, sometimes working hard and tenacity are really important, especially when you're launching something and lifting things off the ground. We have to put that effort in, but we have to find that right balance of effort to restoration. Now, if we're putting in a lot of effort and we're not resting and restoring, then we're operating at a deficit. Okay. Now, these accomplishments also come at what gain? Okay. So sometimes we have gains in terms of like monetary gain or visibility gain or influential gain. Sometimes we have losses on those. And so there's no right or wrong answer when we're thinking about at what gain. But one of the things that I want you to be like curious about that gain is that are those gains aligned with what you value? That's the most important. And then the fourth question for what you have accomplished, at what loss? What did you lose as a result of going after all that you have accomplished? Now, similar to the cost, sometimes the loss is a little bit more intangible, more big meaning. Maybe we have lost perspective, or we have lost face, or we have lost connection, or we lost relationship. Most of these losses will be more on the emotional level. So get curious with at what loss. And then lastly, at what value? Now, sometimes can like for me, this question is really important because I've lost a lot this year because I accomplished so much. And I know that you've heard me say this over and over that this was a very heavy lift year for me. And so I put in that extra effort to finish and complete and accomplish because I knew that the value for what I wanted to create, I wanted to have it done. I wanted to have that next year to be able to polish up and to refine, but to have the pride, that value of accomplishing what I said I would go out and do. And so again, there's no right or wrong answers as you're asking yourself these reflection questions for your own year wrap up. Okay. What have you accomplished? At what cost? At what effort? At what gain? At what loss? And at what value? Now, these are my guiding questions. I would love to hear if you have more guiding questions for yourself. Okay, so now here are some truths in the numbers. So I'll be sharing some numbers that are very specific to me and my business and everything we've accomplished. And I'll be sharing some really transparent things about the cost and the effort and the gains of the losses. Because again, a very, very hard year. I'm really grateful for everything that is accomplished, that has happened and transpired this year, and managing and maybe using my work, to not process some grief. I mentioned that like my mom passed away earlier in this year, and that grief is still with me. So forgive me if I keep on talking about it, because thinking about like the holiday seasons and like the first holiday season without a mom, or without a loved one, for those of us who have lost, like that's a real thing. Like holidays can be really hard at that time. So I still want to put that energy in there to recognize and to know that, maybe I worked too hard because I didn't want to deal with the grief. Maybe. So let's just look at some numbers, some wrap up stats, and I'm going to give some meaning to those numbers. Otherwise, they are just numbers. Okay, so podcast episodes. You are listening to this podcast. And in 2023, we have released, and I say we, I say me because I'm here as the face of this podcast, and Jeff is behind the scenes doing all of like the production and the exporting and getting it everywhere it needs to be. 128 podcast episodes. Woohoo! I feel really proud about those podcast episodes. This is one of the medias that I didn't shy away from this year. Social media, I have not been showing up on social media. I'm sorry to those of us in the Facebook group. I have just not had the ability to show my face and to show up in social media or in Facebook or Instagram. So all of my effort has been going into these podcasts with 128 podcast episodes and with 25,930 downloads. So almost 26,000 downloads. That's about 2,000, a little more than 2,000 downloads a month. And these are the IAB. This is like the individual downloads, not, multiplied or cashed or like bots or anything like that. So this download number is smaller than another number that if you're measuring podcast statistics. So thank you for listening. Thank you for all of those almost 26,000 listens of my podcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, my biggest accomplishment this year is the trainings that I've created and delivered. I have created my entire encyclopedia of trainings. I've had Star Powered Position. That was my foundational training and Written in the Stars for quite a while. But in March, I created and delivered Celestial Cycles, a 4-module, 4-week training. I then created Written in the Stars 201. Then I created Star Powered Voice so that you could create your aligned messaging and brand vibe. Another 4 modules, another encyclopedia of astrology and messaging. And then I also created Star Powered Style, which is not just the visuals, but also our signature systems and our signature methods about how we go about doing things that make us one of a kind. So Star Powered Voice, Star Powered Style, Celestial Cycles, and then currently delivering on Chiron, the Wounded Leader, and how we turn all of our wounds and our challenges into the gifts that we are meant to offer in our leadership, all through Chiron. That is a lot of training. Like even just repeating it back, going, wow, when I say encyclopedias, these are indeed encyclopedias. Now that I have all of this created over 16 modules, hundreds of hours, hundreds of pages, now I can go and fine tune and pull out like the little mini golden nuggets so that, everyday users can use this. But I really created and was so dedicated to completing my entire Astro brand framework because of my Astro brand certification. And this year in 2023, I launched the Astro brand certification to the founding licensed members, 6 people who signed up and said, yes, I want to learn how you teach astrology. I want to use astrology in your way with the Astro brand star powered position, voice, and style. We are almost all the way through our mentorship. In January, those 6 members will be delivering on their case studies, on their presentations, and their sample readings so that they can be the first recipients of this license of the Astro brand certification and go forth and teach astrology in this just mind-blowing way. So the reasons why I created all those trainings was to really set up my certification folks for success. And so that first round is 6 members. Maybe in 2024, it'll be 10 members. Maybe in 2025, it'll be 25 members. Maybe in 5 years, it'll be over 1,000 people. That is my dream, for more of us to use the specifics of astrology in our leadership and our work so that we can make our mark. That is your Astro brand. Okay. So 16 modules created and delivered specifically for my Astro brand certification with 6 members. So grateful for those 6 members who became the first followers and trusted in this method and raised their hands to want to do this. If you want to be an Astro brand have your own Astro brand certification, we are starting in February. So make sure you reach out to me and you're on that list for when applications are already open. Okay. Make sure you get that application. Now, back to those Astro brand certification. One of the things that people will get with their Astro brand certification is that when they give an astrology reading, they will have a license to be able to use all of my Astro brand resources and call their readings Astro brand readings. Now, I had Jeff go look up all of our stats, and in 2023, I delivered 122 Astro brand readings. Some of them were to my members who come in quarterly for their Astro brand readings. Some of them were to my executives who come in for monthly readings. Some of them were for people who just wanted, who simply wanted a 4-pack reading. And some of them were also for people who wanted brand books written. All in all, 122 readings in the span of 12 months. Whew. That is a lot. Now, Astro brand sessions are generally 90 minutes long, but I also have mini readings that I deliver on the new moon. They tend to be 5 to 10 minutes long, and I delivered 204 of them. Whew. In the next year. And when I look back at when I was doing the last new moon reading of 2024, I was like, oh my gosh, why am I so exhausted? Well, because I delivered 204 mini readings. I'm really looking forward to not having to deliver that many next year. They are so fun, but when you have to do that many of them, then it becomes really, really draining. Now, in my community, in Star Powered Circle, I got to serve 51 individuals from annual to quarterly memberships. So it's been such an honor to guide and hold space for 51 Circle members in 2023. We're not yet to 51 in 2024. All kinds of reasons, from an exhausting launch, but that's really because my energy has been low because I've been using it to create all of this content. Next year, I'm going to have so much more time to cultivate and create relationships and visibility with new people who might want to join Star Powered Circle. But for the people who've joined Star Powered Circle, our intimate group of so far 25 people is going to be amazing. I have so many things planned and I'll be able to hold so much more space. Okay, now we know that we still do design projects here at Star Powered New Moon Creative LLC. And so we did 10 do for you design projects between identity, like web visual, brand identity visuals, websites, as well as brand books. These are highly intensive, highly personalized, takes a lot of energy to put these big do for you projects together. We did 10 this year. So patting ourselves on the back. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ishel. Thank you, Jamira. Thank you for everybody who put in your hard work to get these projects off the launch pad. Whew. Okay. Oh, and one last stat, guest appearances. This year, between podcasts and webinars and guest summit, I appeared in 11 times as guest appearances. And that's pretty low for me. And so I can see that this year was, again, a heavy lift because I was so focused in creating all of this content. But my sales and my money have gone down because I wasn't putting in the time to be seen, be visible, show up online, show up on different like speaking engagements. And so money went down 25% this year compared to last year. Oof. Sales went down about 30% this sales cycle. My email list, because we cleaned out about 1,500 inactive members, went down, purposely, intentionally went down. The email list went down to about 4,000 people, but the engagement for that went through the roof because we got rid of so many inactive people. So if my emails go into your junk or you haven't heard from me in a little bit, do know that I'm sending weekly emails. And if you haven't received an email from me in a while, your email might have gotten scrubbed. So make sure to go back to my website, starpower.com, and resubscribe so you're not missing out on all of these juicy Astro bits, okay? And so what else has gone down? My visibility and my energy. And so next year, even though sales and membership and all kinds of things have gone down, I know that there's something even bigger and more energizing and more fulfilling on its way. I absolutely have faith that I'll be able to share all of this wisdom of astrology and the Astro brand method and bring in more people to teach the Astro brand method through the certification. And so if this calls to you, know that I am here. We are waiting. I'm ready to share all of this wisdom with you so that you can serve your clients in finding themselves, to knowing themselves the best. Because ultimately, my goal in astrology and teaching you astrology is, number one, to make myself obsolete because you know astrology and you can guide yourself. And number two is to use astrology to guide ourselves to our highest, to what is true for us as seen in our stars, the way that our soul chose to identify in this lifetime. So my friends, thank you so much for listening to this wrap up and these reflection questions. In the email that goes out with this solstice podcast, I will have those questions written down for you in the email so that you can ponder and journal at the time of solstice and as we move through that Mercury retrograde. So thank you so much again for being here with me. Sending you so much love for a beautiful holiday season. And there's one last episode coming up the day after Christmas. Okay. Oh, one final note. If you want to join me in Star Powered Circle for next year, this is your last chance before the spring. So head on over to starpower.com/circle. All right. Till then, Luminary, it's been so beautiful. Thank you for letting me serve you. Leslie Tagorda, signing off for now. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future